Well, yesterday we got some good news, and it was surprisingly non-dramatic. But what does this mean going forward? I thought it would be good to get some expert opinion, and so I'd like to welcome to the show Jonathan Rose. He's been on Fox News, Bloomberg, and a bunch of other media. He's worked with some of the biggest banks in the world and has his ear to the ground with some of the best financial minds out there. Jonathan of Genesis Gold, I'd like to welcome you to the show. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me back on, and glad to see you safe and sound back here stateside.
Well, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to come back with all the things I was hearing out there, but with the news that came out yesterday morning, I'm feeling pretty good, and I know a lot of my audience is too. So I imagine you're feeling a pretty big sigh of relief with that too.
Absolutely. I'm glad we got the job done. I mean, how wrong did the liberal media get it? I mean, it was a landslide for Trump victory, and they seem to have called it wrong again. But America has spoken, and hopefully they'll pay attention now. And hopefully, President-elect Trump will bring some big changes along the way, and I don't have to worry about my daughter going to the little girl's bathroom with a man standing in there wearing a dress. So let's see if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, the market dramatically moving yesterday, and it really kind of shows that the financial markets were caught by surprise by this, it seems like. Is that kind of your take on it too? Do you think a lot of people in the financial markets and banks and stuff like that were caught by surprise by this?
Yeah, I think it's a positive sentiment, right? That the market's acting the way it's acting, with the stock market rallying and charging forward. That's a very bullish sign that people are happy that Trump's back in office. Now, will those markets continue to rally and go up forever? Absolutely not. So we have to kind of take what we can get right now, because we're still facing a laundry list of issues that have been left behind that could possibly, in fact, take decades, Steve, to reverse and clear up.
Yeah, we've seen that dramatic move. I think it's just a repricing. People were worried about the election, but now we got a whole bunch of other things to worry about. We have a lot of things that should concern the markets. We got all the Middle East oil threats. Mm-hmm. We got Iran talking about blocking the Strait of Hormuz. We got the whole Israel-Iran thing. We got a lot of things to be concerned about out there, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. On the global scale, the stage for the US dollar has been weakened. So when we look at what's ahead of us, there's going to be some big ticket items to actually address. So, something that's kind of creeping up more and more is credit card debt, people defaulting on auto loans, also more regional bank failures, which we possibly could see by year's end, if not early next year. And obviously, when you talk about global instability, obviously Israel and Iran, Ukraine, will that money now stop going to Ukraine? With what's happening in the Middle East, obviously with Russia, with Israel. But obviously, Russia as well, they're training troops in North Korea and putting them over in Ukraine. So, there's a lot of global uncertainty. And when we kind of come back here stateside and people say, well, what does that mean for me? Well, it basically means that if you have assets tied to the market, you have to be aware how these political newsworthy events are actually going to cascade and cause a more of a financial tsunami heading our way. We're obviously $35 trillion in debt. And I know when you and I have spoken over the year, I always say debt does matter. And when we're printing $1 trillion in every 90 days, I don't see how Trump's going to be able to negate that or slow that down. And when that happens, you want to make sure that you have traditional assets, assets such as gold, in your portfolio that's going to shield you from uncertainties, because we can enjoy what's just happened with the new president-elect, but I think we still need to prepare for tomorrow, and also what the crazy left are going to do to probably try and sabotage President Trump's legitimacy run of this next 4 years.
Yeah, and now we're talking about financial markets, we're talking about financial assets, but I know a lot of the audience is just thinking like, what about groceries? What about groceries next week? What about groceries next month? What about groceries next year? If you could just kind of dumb it down to a little bit, like down to inflation, like what do we have to expect inflation wise here at the grocery store, at the gas pump? Like what's that going to look like?
As long as we're printing money, Steve, inflation isn't going away. We've got a lot of local, state level government grant programs that are running out of money, Social Security, Medicare, etc. They're going to have to start printing more money. Printing more money is going to devalue the US dollar. It also leads to higher prices, inflation. As it is right now, everything's super expensive. I just had a family member come over from London. And he just could not believe how much it was for a little carafe of fruit of just raspberries. He was blown away. He's like, how do people live over here? And I'm like, well, this is why some people leave California and people just try and make ends meet, or people who want to retire, they can't retire. They have to work longer. And it's because the cost of living keeps exceeding what their expectations are. Some people we speak to have to take out a second job. So inflation is very insidious. We don't see it, but it's like a little caterpillar on a leaf, taking a bite, and each bite is eroding the purchasing power of the US dollar. This isn't going away. So, I kind of talk about traditional assets such as gold. I keep holding up a kilo of gold, but every time I've spoken to you over the past couple of years, on every show I hold this up or talk about this, these become worth more and more and more. And why is that? Because the dollar is becoming worth less and less and less, but our paychecks aren't going up and everything's becoming more expensive. And that's kind of the best way I could probably explain inflation to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, since the beginning of this year, I got those numbers right in front of me. By the end of October, silver was up 42% since January 1st. Gold was up 33.7%. Stocks were only up, even though they're on a tremendous run this year, they were only up 20 to 24%, depending on which NASDAQ or S&P. But silver basically outpaced by 2-1 the stock market this year. And no one's talking about that.
Yeah, pretty wild. Pretty wild. You mentioned silver. See, I'm sorry to cut you off. You got my ears perked up, because when you talk about silver is something people like to put in their IRAs and 401ks, and rightly so. I feel it's extremely undervalued. And one of the reasons why people are interested in silver, in my opinion, is because of the industrial value that it brings. Samsung has a new EV battery that's coming out that takes 2.2 kilograms of silver in there. So the silver supply at an industrial level is really taking off. And also it takes something like 300 ounces or 500 ounces in every Tomahawk missile of silver that's used in those components. Every
interceptor that we use to shoot down a $60,000 drone is tens of ounces, dozens.
Lot of silver. So I think from a charting point of view and the silver to gold ratio, silver is a great buy. And if you're looking to invest in precious metals, people ask us what percentage of allocation should it be to gold, to silver. Everybody is different, and we try and listen to what people want. But myself personally, I'm very bullish on silver, and people may say, the naysayers, well, we've heard this before, and we've been waiting. But I think the wait's over. Even under a Trump presidency, precious metals, particularly gold, increased 51%. And I think people forget about that. So when we look at how the yellow metal has performed under a Trump presidency, it's performed really well. When we look at the industrial value and strength of silver, it's at an all-time high. Supply is becoming limited. New mines aren't, coming to fruition. And even if they were, it takes years to set up a mine, excavate the metal, turn the ore into a pure form where it can be sold on a retail level. So again, there's a time and a place for metals. It's an integral part of a precious portfolio. It's precious for a reason, because there's a finite supply of it. So again, it's really about getting an education, I would say, Steve, and understanding why people are holding on to precious metals.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people get kind of turned off by it because they're like, I don't want to buy silver. I don't want to buy gold. But when I buy silver, I'm buying groceries.
Yeah.
I'm buying groceries in the future. And that's what people don't. I'm buying medical services in the future. I'm not buying silver. I'm buying what I'm going to buy with the silver in the future, and I'm preserving that value. And honestly, with silver, I believe I'm actually gonna gonna multiply that value. But that's Steve's opinion on the matter, because I'm a silver bug. But yeah, it's silver and gold are just like the dollar. I mean, you're not investing in dollars, you know.
Mhm.
Well, at least you don't think of it that way. And when people buy silver and gold, they shouldn't be thinking about investing in silver and gold. They should be thinking about, I'm just preserving the value in that mode, that medium, because people who are retiring, they want to be able to buy medical services, they want to be able to buy groceries, they want to be able to buy the things that they need, gas to put in their car years down the road.
Yeah.
And,
good point. And I saw you held up one of our prepper bars here. I'm not sure if you've seen the gold one. And I just kind of, if you don't mind me, if I can just share with your audience, because I held up this, which is a kilo of gold. And people say to me, well, how on earth did you come up with this prepper bar? It's super thin. I call it wealth in your wallet. This is a gold one here. But over the years, people said to me, Jonathan, I have this gold bar or a silver brick. I can't carry this around with me. I can't cut it up into little pieces. I can't spend it. I want something I can use, I can spend. So this is why these prepper bars came about. And you can see the perforation edges on this. And this basically means you could just break them off into different sizes. And it's really a versatile bar. It's the only divisible bar made in the USA. It's the only one of its kind. And you can put these in IRAs and 401ks or just keep them at home. Also, as you held up there, comes in silver. So I think there's a utility factor that people are now interested in when you look at assets like gold and silver. It's not just the hedge against inflation, protection from the unknown. It's also like use case scenarios. So when you're talking about you're looking at not buying silver, you're looking at buying groceries or medical needs in the future. But if you're just keeping it in cash and that cash is eroding, you have to park it somewhere. People don't trust the banking system as much. It's been broken for a long time, especially when we kind of start shifting into the era of digital dollars and central bank digital currencies. And we're hearing words like BRIC nations and new reserve currencies, because I talk about at the beginning of this interview about how the Western dominance, the stage has been set where we've been shunned to the side, and other developing oil producing nuclear nations, they are producing their own currencies. They want to back it with physical gold. So people are now looking at safe harbor. They have safe harbor in gold and silver, but now, use case scenarios where you can take this with you in your wallet and, God forbid we need it, but better to have it and not use it than not have it at all. I just think that utility factor as well. For me personally, anytime you can marry utility with a track record, you have a winner. So I appreciate you holding up that prepper bar there, because I just think they're really cool. It's a great product.
They're great. And I love how American they are, because they're set up in ounces instead of grams. All the Valcambi bars out there are in grams and not ounces, and we're Americans, so at least I'm American, right? I know some people watching this from all over the place, so so those things are fantastic. I love that you guys made those, and they really hit a sweet spot for some people out there. So there's also, you can do all sorts of different kinds of silver and gold inside your IRAs. I know you can do the prepper bars, you can do more standard eagles or whatever you want to do. So that's, whatever's good for the folks, but I love that you're making that available to all sorts of people. So now you've been talking to a whole bunch of people in the lead up to the election. And I know you've been getting a lot of people kind of coming in and very concerned about the election, but what were you kind of hearing from those folks? Like what they were concerned about and what they were kind of getting prepared for with their investment accounts? And
I think a general consensus is just the overall state of where the economy is at right now. I mean, you're hearing things like 7-Eleven stores are closing, 400 stores are closing across America. You hear things like John Deere, the tractor company, they're laying off workers, moving fabrication overseas to Mexico. Big retail stores closing by the day. So recession talk then kind of tips over into the depression talk, which we definitely don't want to head into a depression. So people are just concerned what the future looks like. And obviously, you don't buy flood insurance after the banks burst. You have it in place beforehand. So really, what people are looking at right now is just safety and security. And I honestly believe that doesn't just begin with gold and silver, but it begins with an education. So I know, Steve, at some point you tell people to go to our website, but we have a bunch of great e-guides that people have been asking for, whether it's a wealth protection kit. We have one that's about the de-dollarization, the effects of the digital dollar. We have the Trump effect now on what the Trump effect outlook and what we have to battle and be concerned about, whether it's Brics nations or CBDCs. So it's really about getting an education. And I will say, when I speak to people, if I'm fortunate enough to take calls from your viewers, people are already very educated, makes actually our job a lot easier, that they're up to speed with all these factors that are going on in the world. And if they're not, that's fine too. And that's why we kind of put these educational guides together so people can read and get an understanding first and foremost. And then from there, they can start basing their opinion where assets like gold and silver serve a role in their portfolio.
Yeah. How do people get some of those resources? Like, how do we get some of those into the people's hands? Do they just reach out to you guys, or?
Yeah, you have a URL. I believe it's Poplar Gold, correct? I think Poplar Gold they can go to.
Yeah, they'll go straight to your website, I believe. And if you go to you look at the pinned comment down below or the description, and there'll be a link at the end of the video too. But any one of those will get you to there. And they fill out a form, I believe, with their information, and then you guys reach out to them. They just ask for those resources then.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask for those resources if they are looking to protect an IRA on 401k, and they want to learn how to roll that over tax and penalty free. It's extremely simple. In fact, it's amazing. I was at a pre-presidential elect party the other night as the results were rolling in. And, I speak to lots of people in this community, and they ask what I do. And I say precious metals and IRA and 401ks. And it amazes me how many people will say to me, I didn't realize I could put gold and silver in an IRA or 401k, like still to this day, because there's a little known loophole that lets people do that. So anyone that kind of wants to do that and they reference you, we actually waive the setup fees. So it's very advantageous for them to mention your name when they want to do this and when they're ready, obviously. But it's, again, an understanding, education. There's a pivotal role that assets like gold and silver play. And like you, I'm very kind of bullish on silver right now. Obviously, gold as well. It's definitely a hedge against a lot of uncertainty. And I think the next 4 to 5 years, there's still going to be a lot of uncertainty. And I still think the left is going to probably try and attack and tarnish President Trump's legacy. So it's about being prepared. And if you're prepared and you have all your bases covered, then you're getting in front of it and being proactive and not reactive.
Yeah, I mean, I was all about, like, let's get Trump in office. Let's get Republican Congress. Let's get Republican Senate. And then maybe we have a chance. But if they effect the reforms that need to be effected, this is going to be a rough ride. I mean, I think that I'm starting to realize I need to start communicating that more to the audience, is that this is not going to be an easy ride. If we pull up this aircraft from smashing into the ground, we're going to have to do some extreme maneuvers here. We're going to have to cut trillions of dollars of free welfare money from the federal government to corporations, and corporations aren't going to like that. People need to be bracing for some turbulent times ahead, no matter what happens. Hopefully we can save the country and the financial system, but it's going to get a little wild. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there need to be some big changes and some wild maneuvers. And no one wants to be in an airplane when the pilot's doing some wild maneuvers, because there's going to be some knee-jerk reactions, okay? Whether that's the oxygen mask falling down and people screaming, that's how the markets react. So any knee-jerk reactions that happen, there's going to be repercussions. Obviously, interest rates, number one, super high. You bring those down, which people need to have lower interest rates just to afford their mortgages or just to get to the American dream. Well, in doing so, repercussions there are a lower dollar. The strength of the dollar will decline with lower interest rates. Gold has an inverse relationship with the dollar. So interest rates go down, it's going to be actually positive for gold. But then we look at all the other issues that we're dealing with. They're on our doorsteps. And I always say we don't have a crystal ball, but we have a pretty good roadmap. So the first thing I'm kind of concerned about is the state of the stress test for these banks that are going to be reporting for commercial loans that are defaulting. And when that happens, I think that's going to be something that we'll see reflected in the market. And obviously, a lot of these changes and the damage that has already been done, it's not going to be an overnight fix. So again, it could take a decade for a lot of these issues, these kind of tight, tangled ball to be unwound. And during that time, you've got to hope for the best, but also prepare for the worst.
Yeah, and it's 2.5 months before he even gets into office, and it's still going to take him time to start making changes. So we got some time here before we even start to see any hope, really.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd say a prudent man foresees danger and prepares. And we've got a lot to prepare about, traditional investments, kind of getting back to the roots of it's funny. My wife the other night was saying, we need to start getting back to, traditional values, whether it's even with food. Okay. Like none of these chemicals, just good, wholesome food. And it's the same with investing, nothing crazy, like good, wholesome investing, like just making sure your bases are covered. And I think, people are realizing this, and it'll be interesting to see what happens before the election swearing actually happens. So I think the market will be watching closely, and we'll have to see if there's any, knee-jerk reactions. You talk about, trade deficits and how you're going to wipe that off. We talk about bringing manufacturing jobs back to America, taxing imports, tax money, corporation rate tax cuts. I mean, I'm glad I'm not on the economic team, because there's going to be a lot of late night coffee drinking and pencils being snapped on paper, because there are some complicated questions that need to be asked, and the answers are probably not going to be what everyone wants to hear, and there may be more pain first before things actually get better. Yeah,
I know our prayers are with them. There's a lot of people going to be heading to Washington, D.C. with Donald Trump, and we wish them the best. We're praying for them, and we hope that they can turn things around. But we've really messed up this country really, really bad. And can it be saved? I don't know. But hopefully we got a fighting chance. But all right. Well, thank you so much for joining with us. Like we said, down the pinned comment down below, the top comment will be there's their phone number right there. If you want to just give them a call and ask them some questions, just see if switching IRA might be right for you, or if you want to get some quotes on the prepper bars, silver, gold, or if you want to talk to them about those type of things, make sure you mention this channel, like you said, if you do move forward with them with the IRA or with the prepper bars or whatever, because you do get some fees waived and stuff like that. So that's super good. There's also that link for the website down there too, to get some resources to find out more if you're more of a reader. To get some answers to your questions about what you can do with the IRAs. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on board. But I'll give you the final word here. You got one last thing to toss at us, a pearl of wisdom or a thought?
There's a saying in our industry: you don't wait to buy gold, you buy gold and wait, right? And I feel like that's so true today. Especially in these crazy times that we're living in. And like you said, hopefully those crazy times turn into better times. But in the meanwhile, we still have to prepare. We can celebrate this recent victory, but I think we also need to prepare for the left to come at us and throw us a few curveballs. And I know I'm ready, and I hope you and your listeners are as well.
All right. Thanks so much, Jonathan. I will see you later, and I'll see you guys later in just a little bit. Thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.